Hello you lovely lot and welcome to another video. My name's Katie and today we are gonna unbox, swatch and create with June scrawlrbox. If you're new here or if you haven't already, why not hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more videos like this one. Anyway, with that being said, let's talk about the box, shall we? So, our featured artist is Renate Paton, and I love this print. I think it's really colourful and vibrant, and after unveiling all of the goodies here, I can see why. Now, it's not massively rammed like recent scrawlrboxes have been, and I can cope with that. There's definitely a good few projects here to be cracking on with. So the items we have are the Pilot Pintor markers in neons. We have a red, yellow, green and apricot. I've featured these before on my channel with a scrawlrbox. I picked one up in the sale about a year ago, maybe a little longer, and they're nice to work with. They're comparable with a Posca. We also have a Pigma Micron in 05, the colour purple. Super glad we didn't end up with another black one, as I'm sure if you haven't already, the upgrade box might feature a few more microns. And our surface to work on is the Frisk Bristol Board 250 GSM, and there are 10 sheets to go at there. So upon swatching these pens, the first thing that strikes me is you need to put your sunglasses on to look at these. Unfortunately, the camera just doesn't quite do it justice. The Sakura Micron, perfect as always. I actually quite like the size nib that we've got as well. I tend to find that if you've got a really fine nib and you've got these chunky pens, it's more work. The confectionery we had, which is the Stinger, very fluorescent tasting as well. It nearly turned my face inside out, it was so sour. Anyway, that aside, this month's Scroll Challenge is Electric Dreams. So I was getting Blade Runner vibes with that prompt, and I thought I would draw Rachel from, well, Blade Runner. I haven't watched that film for absolutely ages, and I feel like maybe this weekend I might just have to. I'd also seen the sequel as well, which I thought was pretty good, but I think I might have to revisit the original first one, because I quite liked Harrison Ford back in that era. Anyway, totally gone off track there. So I wanted to really make this look a bit pop art and add a hint of anime manga to it as well. For the placement of where the colours are going, I tried to divide these 4 pens into their tonal values and tried to figure out which was the darkest, lightest mid-tones, you know what I mean. I think when you've got a very restrictive palette like this one, and you can't really go too far into realism, then I think that's a great way of using these supplies. Just divide it into tonal values and it'll make sense that way. I thought the green would be perfect for the background. I definitely thought pink would be best for the darker toned areas, and I'm going to keep calling it pink. I know it says it's red, but I kind of think a fluorescent red would be pink, don't you think? Oh, rhymed again, whoops. Obviously, the apricot colour was great for a base tone for the skin, but I also think using that yellow paint marker was perfect for adding the highlights in there. Now, paint markers do have a bit of habit of chewing the paper up, and I'm not going to lie, the paper itself was a good surface for it. However, it did just ever so slightly chew it up, and the best way to avoid this is to just not press on too hard and not go over too many areas in one go. Let each layer dry and then go over it again. I tend to find as well it's not just the paper that comes up, it's the part dry paint as you're putting the layers down. You know, you'll do an area, and where you started and where you're up to, there's going to be different drying times involved, and I think when you originally go over that first area again without letting it dry, you're going to have this congealed paint bogey type thing going on, and that was obviously a little abrasive to the paper as well. So just be patient, do a layer at a time, let it dry, and you will find as well, once you've got a dry layer to work on, the paint marker will adhere better to it too. Now I'm at the stage here, as you can see, where I'm just adding another top coat there, and again it's pretty good for any areas that you might have missed on the first sweep around. Don't be tempted to fill them in. Go in there when it's dry and you will just have a much better, more cleaner, crisp area. As you can see, it looks quite flat, and to be honest, I actually would have been happy with leaving it as is, but I really wanted to use this liner pen. I don't have very many coloured Sakuras. I think I have 3 others, which are goodness knows where at the moment. I do know I don't have a purple one though, so I'm very happy with that. So I went for a bit of an anime style here, and that just involved ramping up the contrast as much as I dared, making the character's eyes just a little bit bigger than the reference picture I was working from as well. Also, another important thing about making sure your layers are dry, not only for when you're using the paint markers, but when it comes to adding the line details in, because it's a different type of medium, you really want to make sure that surface is bone dry, because you don't want it to clog up the nib on your pen and ruin your lovely pen. So now we're up to a favourite part of any portrait drawing that I'm doing, and that is the hair. And to try and keep it as natural and as pristine as possible, I separated the fringe out into sections first, just so I would have a relatively consistent curved line to emphasise her fringe, or bangs, wherever you are in the world, you know what I mean. By adding different lengths of lines in there, it just creates a little bit more of a natural, which is completely the wrong thing since I'm drawing a replicant here, but you know what I mean. It looks natural and it looks convincing, and I think when you're doing a picture like this, especially because I've sort of used not very natural colours, I think to tie it all in is to try and add some realism in some parts and then just let it go a little bit wild and wacky in others. I suppose in a weird roundabout way I loosened up a little with having to use such a wild colour palette, but reined it all back in again with the line details. Now I was a little bit tempted to add some highlights in there and using the yellow pen, but I actually think it probably would not have done any good doing that. I think it might have looked a little bit weird as well. In a strange kind of way, it reminds me a little bit of a screen print perhaps, where all of the colours are laid down in blocks and then that final line details placed over the top with the screen. Now, I must admit, upon opening this box, dare I say I was a little intimidated by the supplies? And what I mean by that is, what the heck am I going to do with these? I'll be honest, the prompt did help, and I do feel like it was well matched with the mediums we'd got. But yeah, it was a little bit scary, and I think once I'd just sort of had a little bit of a think about what I was going to do, it kind of all came quite naturally. As long as I remained relatively organised with the application and the order that I applied them in, it wasn't so bad. And of course with these paint markers, if you do make any slight little hiccups, they are relatively opaque and with a couple of coats, so you can kind of hide a few unintentional mistakes there. Now for the background, I didn't particularly just want to leave it as green. I thought the foreground was beginning to vanish a little bit. So I made some baselines on the page, went over them and then filled it in again in between, a little bit of a similar approach to how I did the fringe. Doing this meant I'd got some relatively consistent straight-ish lines there, or as straight as you can get them with a free hand. I must admit though I did pencil them out first, just the baselines though. Anyway, once I'd got an even coverage of lines down there, it was time to just add a little bit of depth to the piece by making some of the lines closer together, especially around where our replicant is right now. Now part of me did want to add lots of cross-hatching and line work to the picture here, especially on Rachel's jawline, just where the shadow was cast, and a little bit more on the clothes she's wearing. But I also think as well, I kind of like the fact that I didn't. I think I might have got to the stage where I just would have overworked the piece, and I think just leaving it at this left it looking quite nice. I like the fact that her skin and her clothes have this very artificial feel to them, again just because I didn't go too heavy with the details apart from on the hair, but that's sort of, in my opinion, what strikes a good balance here. To add some additional shadows on her clothes, I just went in with that pink pen because that was going to be my darker tone, and I just tidied a few other little bits and pieces with the pens where I thought, yeah, it probably needs a little bit more. The only part of the page I left white was her eyes, and I think that also adds something to it as well. All in all, I did actually quite enjoy this box. It might not have been a box I'd have chose, but then I guess that's the point of having a mystery art box, right? There should be some more videos on screen I think you're gonna love. I just want to say massive thank you for watching, and I do hope you've found this useful and enjoyed it. Until next time, you lovely lot, I'll see you later. Bye!